When you first start playing champion squads, you're bombarded with tons of things to do, and it can be overwhelming. Therefore, today I'm going to be going over what are the more important areas to focus your attentions so that you can progress in the most efficient way possible, and not waste your precious time and resources. But first, why not subscribe to the channel with notifications on? And also, I want to give a big shout out to Ian Shaw, who was the first person to guess the correct player in the last video. He is now officially the first player to make it onto the leaderboards, and will hold the #1 spot until someone overtakes him. Keep an eye out for Ronaldo at some point in this video for your chance to make it onto the scoreboard. Now, let's get into the video. The first thing you want to do when starting off your champion squad's journey is to make sure you have a good 3-skill player to build your team around. If you don't know what a 3-skill player is, it's basically an elite version of a card that only is available for short periods of time, and is very rare to obtain. They are identified by having the color of the box behind their overall at the bottom left of their card in black, as opposed to red, which normal cards have. To get this card to build your team around, you want to use the reroll method. It's very simple. You just keep deleting and recreating an account on your device, use the free prime balls to do the first draw, and if you do not get a satisfactory player, just to delete the account and repeat the process. You can even do this on multiple devices at the same time to speed up the process. But this is by far the most important thing to do as a new player, because as I stated before, these cards are very rare, so starting off with one will give you a massive advantage. Even if you're 2 to 3 weeks into a new account, if you have no 3-skill players, I would still recommend going back and re-rolling a new account. That's how vital this is. You could also start your account around a 3-skill legend, but I would only do this with a very overpowered legend like Ronaldinho or Maradona. If it's not one of them, I would stick to a regular 3-skill player, because you can fill your squad with them, whereas you can only have 3 legends in your squad, and eventually, if you target legend draws, you can obtain 3 legends easily enough. Now that we've got our 3-skill player to build our team around, let's start looking at what we should be doing daily, and where our resources should be going. Basically, you will get into a daily routine in the game, much like every other mobile game. You will want to keep making sure your GP and BP is being spent as it is recovered. You can see how much of each you have at the top of your screen, as well as how fast of a rate they are recovering at. As a new account, you'll be leveling up so fast that it feels like you have infinite energy, but eventually that will slow down and you will need to start using your energy as efficiently as possible. Your BP will be used for things like ranked matches and 11s matches, but that isn't very important at the start of the game because it doesn't offer many resources. So if you want, you can play around with those game modes, but don't focus too hard on them. And check out my mid-game guide to learn a bit more about what to do with your BP once you reach that point. Your GP, however, is your most valuable resource for now as a new player. This is used for modes like Road to Glory, training matches, skill matches, and even weekly events. Ideally though, most of your GP should be going towards the weekly events, because that's the core loop of the game. You grind out these events for rewards like 5-star player draws, which either you get lucky and get awesome players to put into your lineup, or you can sell them and use the resources to power up your better players. Some events at the start might be a bit difficult to grind for new accounts, but just try your best, and as you level up, they will become less difficult. Many new players are tempted to use their GP on other game modes like training and skill matches, but most of the rewards from those modes come from events as well, and eventually you will have more resources than you know what to do with, so I would try to focus my GP on the weekly events. It's more of a bang for your buck. The same goes for Road to Glory. Although you can gain decent amounts of prime balls from doing them, there's a weekly event that comes around that makes you do them for additional rewards, so I would hold off on doing them until that event shows up. It's basically like hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. Also, don't forget to always do your daily and weekly challenges, because that's a nice and easy way to build up resources for the future. Okay, so now that we know how to spend our energy, let's look at what we should be doing with the resources we acquire, and what we should put them towards. The basic resources that you will get are skill items and training items. Training items upgrade the player's overall level, and skill items unlock and power up the player's skills. First thing you will want to do is level up your 3-skill players to the max, and unlock all their skills. The first 2 skills are unlocked with skill items, and the 3rd skill is unlocked by playing games with the player in your team. Once that is done, you can focus the rest of your resources on the players in your squad. These resources are really easy to acquire, and you get a lot of them, so don't worry about wasting any of them. The only tip I can give you is to focus on unlocking skills on all the players before maxing out the skill levels, because a card with 2 skills unlocked versus a card with no skills unlocked is night and day. Eventually, you will need special items to max out your gold skills, but again, that's something for the mid-level guide, as it won't come up until your account has progressed further. Along your journey, you will come across cards known as metal cards. It's very confusing at first, because you might get a Messi metal card and be like, awesome, I pulled Messi, I want him in my team, but why is he so weak compared to my other cards? And that's because it's a metal card. Basically, it's a 3-star card that you fuse into stronger cards to unlock additional talents on that card, for a total of 3 talents, plus a bonus talent once you've fused 5 cards into the main card. So, although these cards may look weak, you still want to hold on to these cards for the future when you pull the powerful version of Messi, so you can fuse them into him and make him even more powerful. Also, keep an eye out for things known as refraction medals, which look like any other card but have a shiny effect on them, and the stars under them are in red. It's hard to actively seek out these cards because they are very rare, but if you come across any, make sure to not get rid of them, because if you fuse them into a main card, the effects carry over and you have a refracted version of that card, which is much more powerful. Along with the metal cards, another very important resource you want to save and use wisely is your limit break points. You may acquire some from random tasks and events, but the main way to gain limit break points is by discarding unwanted 5-star players. Because of this, it may take a while before you start accumulating points, because first, you need enough good players to fill up your starting lineup. But eventually, you will have excess players that you get rid of and use to limit break your main players. Basically, every 5-star player you discard, you gain 10,000 limit break points. 4-star and 3-star players give way less, so although they help as well, they aren't that useful. Once you have 50,000 points saved up, you can increase the max level of a player of your choosing, for a total of 10 times. Essentially, the main grind to endgame is limit breaking all your starting squad to the max. A quick note though, don't automatically discard every player that can't make your starting lineup for limit break points, because later down the line, you will want to make something known as type teams to complete certain events, but I will talk about that more in the mid-game guide video. Just keep in mind, even if a player can't make your team, if they are still good, it may be worth holding on to them. Another way to limit break a player is by fusing another version of the same card into itself, but it has to be a real card and not a metal version of the player. Also, international versions of the player cannot be fused with the club version of a player, and vice versa. This is the best way to limit break, because not only do you get a level up, you also get a higher chance at a rare talent on that card too. But it isn't easy to get a duplicate card, because there are so many cards available in the game. You will also come across things known as boost whistles, but for now, I wouldn't waste resources on using them, because they are very expensive to use and don't add much power to the card. So hold on to them, and look out for the mid-game video guide on how you should use them. Next up, we'll take a look at what you want to be saving up your prime balls for. If you aren't aware what these are, you can see how much of them you have at the top right of your screen, and this is the primary currency you use to do draws and get better players. You want to use these as efficiently as possible, so never go for any of the single draws. Always save up 250 for an 11s draw, and you have higher odds for better players if you save up a lot and do large amounts of draws at once. For example, most draws have 10 different rounds of drawing, with better odds the more you draw. So many elite players only draw once they have 2,500 prime balls saved up, and they save them for certain draws that have players they need. This is a very efficient way, but I can understand if you can't wait that long to do draws, as it is the most fun part of the game, and at the beginning you want to unlock more players as soon as possible. So from the start, it's okay to spend your prime balls more often, but just keep this technique in mind for when you're approaching endgame. As for what draws you want to save your prime balls for, there's lots of different good ones. For starters, you'll want to do both of your beginner draws, as they usually have very good odds on them. If you are really enjoying this game, and are willing to spend a little bit of real money on it, then there's a pretty cheap one-time draw you can purchase that also has good odds, but don't feel like this is a necessity. I have taken many accounts far without spending anything on them. From there, retry draws are always fun, because if you get a bad player on the first draw, you can retry for a chance at a better player. There will also be things like 100+ player draws that come around. Those are always useful if you're lacking high-level players. And then also, when you're getting to the point where most of the positions in your team are filled, you can start focusing on type draws. So like for example, if you're lacking defenders, you could save and wait for the guardian draws. Or, if you need a striker, save for the striker draws. Or if you just need some elite players, you can save for the MVP or Supremo draws, which is like the top players from every team. These are usually very good players. There will be a link in the top right and in the video description to my draw videos playlist. So if you want to look through some of the kinds of draws that happen before in the game and what you could get from them, you'll be able to do so. I will leave on screen now some very helpful images created by Kaniwar over on the Champion Squad's Discord that will show you a schedule of the draws released back in 2021, as well as how many prime balls he managed to save per month for a whole year, so you can get a better understanding of how many prime balls you will have to spend and when you should be saving them for. It's not always 100% the same every year, but it's usually very similar. And finally, when it comes to prime balls, you will always want to save up 2,500 for New Year's Day, because a legend draw comes out that guarantees at least one legend. Usually you'll get at least two, and there's usually a very powerful legend available like Ronaldinho or Maradona. These are all three skill players, so this is a massive date to look out for new accounts. Maybe once you already have 3 maxed out legends that you're satisfied with, you can skip this draw. But I always keep 2,500 saved up, just in case the new legend is too good to miss out on. If you're running low on prime balls, a very good and easy way to get some extra prime balls on a new account is to get your beginner missions done. Plus, you will unlock a 100+ player guaranteed draw for doing them. You can also get your first 20 friendly matches done, and doing so will award you enough for another draw. There will be a video guide on how to get that done easily in the top right and in the video description below. Now that you have all of these things in mind, you are ready to be a success in champion squads. Keep grinding and being efficient, and hopefully the draw gods will smile upon you. Once you start maxing out most of your players and have a good starting 11, you can go over to the mid-game guide for some more useful information to look out for. Looking back on the video, I noticed I said GP and BP a lot. The first person who could tell me how many times I said GP and BP will also earn themselves a spot on the trivia leaderboards, and a shout out in the next video. But I hope this video was helpful for some of you. If it was, please leave a like on it. It really helps. And subscribe to the channel. We have lots more helpful videos coming soon. But until next time, may the draw gods be forever in your favor. Thanks for watching another video. If you'd like to see more Champion Squad related content, then click on any of the videos on screen now.